The night Damian Blackthorn rejected his fated mate, the sky did not cry, but the pack remembered it as the night the moon dimmed. Wren Ashford had stood before the entire Blackthorn pack, her heart swelling with hope, waiting for the Alpha King to claim her as his Luna. Instead, he looked at her the way one looks at something beneath notice. "An Omega," he said, his voice carrying across the courtyard like a blade. "I am the strongest Alpha this pack has ever known, and the moon binds me to an Omega who cannot even shift without trembling. I reject you, Wren Ashford. You are not fit to stand beside me." The words landed harder than any physical blow. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some pitied her, others smirked, glad the weak girl had been put in her place. Wren did not cry in front of them. She would not give them that satisfaction. She simply turned, walked past the rows of wolves who had once called her pack sister, and disappeared into the tree line. She did not look back. For 3 days, she wandered through the forbidden forest, a place pack members were warned never to enter, said to be cursed, said to swallow travelers whole. Wren did not care. Grief had hollowed her out, and fear no longer had anywhere to live inside her. She walked until her legs gave out beneath an ancient white tree, its bark glowing faintly silver in the moonlight, and there, she finally let herself weep. "Why was I born this way?" she whispered to the empty forest. "Why does the moon curse me with a bond I was never meant to keep?" The forest did not answer with words. Instead, the ground beneath her began to hum, and the white tree's branches bent low, as though listening. A voice, soft as wind through silver leaves, spoke inside her mind, not from around her, but from within her. "You call this a curse, child. I call it patience." Wren startled, scrambling backward against the tree's roots. "Who's there?" A figure emerged from the trunk itself, formed of moonlight and mist, tall and radiant, her eyes ancient beyond measure. Wren recognized her at once from the old stories her grandmother used to tell, stories she had always assumed were myths, told to comfort frightened pups. "You are the moon goddess," Wren breathed. "Selene." "I am," the goddess said, "and I have watched you for a long time, Wren Ashford. Not because you are weak, because you are patient, in a world that mistakes patience for weakness, and gentle, in a world that mistakes gentleness for surrender." Wren shook her head, tears still wet on her cheeks. "I don't feel strong, I feel broken." Selene knelt before her, moonlight pooling like water around her feet. "Broken things can be remade, child, but only if they choose to rise rather than remain shattered. I offer you a choice tonight. You may return to the human world, live a quiet life, and forget this pack ever existed. Or you may become my vessel, carry my light, my strength, and my judgment. But know this, if you accept, you will never again be the girl who begged for a place beside a king. You will decide who kneels, and who does not." Wren thought of her mother's soft voice, her father's warm laughter, memories of a home that felt a lifetime away. She thought of Damian's face, twisted with disdain, the way his words had made her feel smaller than she had ever felt in her life. She thought of every Omega who had ever been looked down upon, simply for being born gentle instead of fierce. "I choose to rise," she said. Selene smiled, and the moonlight around them surged brighter, wrapping around Wren like a second skin. It did not hurt. It felt like coming home to a body she had always been meant to have. When the light faded, Wren rose to her feet, and though she looked the same on the outside, something ancient now lived beneath her skin, calm and unshakable. "Go," Selene whispered, her voice fading into the wind. "Show them what patience becomes when it finally decides to stand." 3 years passed. The Blackthorn pack had changed in that time, though not for the better. Damian Blackthorn had grown colder since the rejection, though few dared to ask why. He told himself it did not matter. He told himself an Alpha King needed no one, that strength alone was enough to hold a kingdom together. But some nights, when the moon rose full and silver, he found himself standing at his window, staring toward the forbidden forest, wondering what had become of the girl he had cast aside. He told himself it was nothing. He told himself he did not care. He told himself many things that were not true. It was on an ordinary evening, with the pack gathered for a routine border meeting, that the forest itself seemed to hold its breath. The wind stilled, the birds fell silent, and from the tree line, a figure emerged, walking with a grace that made every wolf present instinctively lower their eyes. She was radiant, cloaked in soft silver light that seemed to breathe with her every step. Her eyes held the calm of moonlit water and the weight of centuries. The pack recognized her scent before they recognized her face, and when they did, a ripple of astonished whispers spread through the crowd. "It's her," someone murmured. "The Omega who was rejected." "That can't be her. Look at her. She's glowing." Damien turned, and the moment his gaze met Ren's, something in his chest clenched so tightly he nearly staggered. He had faced rival alphas without flinching. He had led his pack through wars without hesitation. But nothing had prepared him for the sight of Ren Ashford standing before him, no longer the trembling girl he remembered, but someone entirely transformed. "Ren," he said, and to his own surprise, his voice was not steady. She stopped several feet away, studying him, with an expression he could not read. "Hello, Damien." Around them, the pack began to kneel, one by one, sensing a presence far greater than any alpha they had known. Ren did not ask for it. She did not even seem to notice it happening, though the ancient power within her recognized its own kind, and the wolves' instincts bowed before it without her command. Damien did not kneel. His pride would not allow it, not even now, not even as everything he understood about power rearranged itself in front of him. "What happened to you?" he asked. "I found something in that forest you always warned us to avoid," Ren said quietly. "I found a reason to keep standing, even after you gave me every reason to fall." Guilt flickered across his face, quickly buried beneath the mask he had worn since childhood, the mask that told him kings did not apologize, kings did not falter. "You should not have returned," he said, though the words felt hollow even as he spoke them. "I did not return for you," Ren replied. "I returned because this land is still my home, whether you welcomed me in it or not. And because the goddess who chose me asked me to see what has become of the people I once called my pack." At her words, the very air around them shimmered, and for a heartbeat, every wolf present felt a presence far older than themselves settle over the courtyard like a blanket of moonlight. Damien felt it too, a weight pressing against his very bones, urging him toward the ground. He resisted. He had never bowed to anyone in his life, not his father, not his rivals, not even the moon itself on the night of his first shift. He would not bow now, not even to whatever power had wrapped itself around the girl he had once discarded. "I do not kneel," he said through gritted teeth, sweat beating at his temple as the pressure built. Ren studied him for a long moment, and something like understanding passed behind her eyes. She lifted a hand, and the pressure eased, though it did not disappear entirely. "I did not come here to force you to your knees, Damien," she said. "The goddess does not want blind submission. She wants truth. So I will ask you once, and only once. Do you regret what you did to me?" The courtyard fell utterly silent. Every wolf present held their breath, watching their king, waiting to see whether pride would win, as it always had before. Damien's jaw tightened. Memories flooded through him. The humiliation on Ren's face the night he rejected her, the hollow years that followed, the nights he told himself he felt nothing, when in truth he had felt everything and buried it beneath duty and pride. "Yes," he finally said, the word rough, unfamiliar in his mouth. "I regret it. I was cruel to you, because I feared what it meant to need someone. I told myself strength meant needing no one, and I made you pay for a fear that was never yours to carry. It was not a grand apology. It was not poetic or perfectly worded. But it was honest, and Ren, who had spent years learning to sense truth from lies, felt the sincerity in it like warmth against her skin. "That is a start," she said softly. Over the following weeks, Ren did not return to the pack as their Luna, not yet. She remained near the border, watching, observing, allowing Damien the space to prove whether his words carried weight beyond that single moment of honesty. She healed the sick among the Omegas who had long been ignored. She listened to pack members who had never been given a voice. Slowly, quietly, she became a presence the pack trusted, not because a goddess had chosen her, but because she chose kindness, even when she had every reason not to. Damien watched from a distance, humbled in a way he had never known before. He began visiting the Omega quarters himself, something he had never once done as Alpha. He listened to complaints he had previously dismissed. He defended a young Omega from a cruel warrior who mocked him for his gentle nature, standing between them with a firmness that had nothing to do with pride, and everything to do with the lesson Ren's absence had taught him. Word of the changes spread, and slowly, the pack that had once mocked weakness began to understand that strength and gentleness were never opposites at all. The true test came when a rival Alpha, sensing division within Blackthorn territory, launched an attack meant to exploit what he assumed was a fractured pack. Wolves clashed at the border, chaos erupting beneath a bloodless moon, for even in battle, Ren's presence seemed to calm the storm rather than feed it. Damien fought at the front, as he always had, but for the first time, he fought not to prove his strength to anyone, but to protect the people he had finally learned to see. When the rival Alpha cornered him, exhausted and outnumbered, it was Ren who appeared beside him, her moonlit power flaring not as a weapon of dominance, but as a shield of protection. Together, they stood, not as Alpha and rejected Omega, but as equals, bound by choice rather than obligation. The rival Alpha, faced with power he could not comprehend, retreated, his ambitions crushed beneath the sight of a king, and his true match standing united. When the battle ended, and the pack began to recover, Damien turned to Ren, breathless, his pride finally, truly humbled. "I do not deserve you," he said. "I know that. I am not asking you to forget what I did. I am only asking for the chance to become someone worthy of standing beside you. Not because the moon commands it, but because I choose it." Ren looked at him for a long moment, the moonlight around her softening, the goddess within her quiet, as though she too was listening. "I am not the same girl you rejected," she said finally. "I do not need your approval to know my worth. But I have watched you these past weeks, and I have seen a man trying, truly trying, to become someone better. That means something to me." She reached out, her hand meeting his, and the courtyard around them seemed to hold its breath once more, though this time, not out of fear, but out of quiet hope. "I will not promise forever," she said, "but I will give you the chance to earn it." Damien's throat tightened, something in his chest loosening after years of carrying a weight he had never allowed himself to name. "That is more than I deserve. It is more than enough." The sun rose over Blackthorn territory that morning, gentle and golden, chasing away the last shadows of a night that had changed everything. The pack that had once knelt out of fear now knelt out of respect, not for a king who demanded submission, but for two souls who had found their way back to each other through honesty, patience, and the quiet, unshakable strength that gentleness had carried all along. Ren Ashford, once cast aside as unworthy, walked beside the Alpha King not as his shadow, but as his equal, carrying within her the light of a goddess who had known, long before anyone else, that true strength was never about who bowed and who did not. It was about who chose, in the end, to stand together.